Hey guys, John Lee Dumas here, founder and host of EO Fire, and you're listening to Bravepreneur Parents Academy with ldquo.
Welcome to Bravepreneur Parents Academy, where the world's most inspiring entrepreneurs reveal their most defining childhood moments and share their legacy for raising brave little heroes who will grow up to change the world. And now, he still reads comic books under the blanket at bedtime. Please welcome your host, best-selling author, award-winning speaker, and self-confessed geek dad, ldquo. You know, like the hotel in Vegas? Yeah, no, that's really his name. ldquo.
Welcome back to another episode of the Bravepreneur Parents Academy. Today, you are in for a treat. We are talking to Mr. Chris Sansome. He is a sergeant in the police force. He has been a 17-year police officer working to protect us in our communities. He's got a beautiful wife. They've been married 4 years. He's the father of 2 boys, and he's a contributor to the book Dad's Behaving Dadly, Part 2. Chris also blogs at the parentalshift.com, and he talks about the shift of being a father at age 40 of 2 young boys. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk a little bit about Chris's profession, what he's learned about parenting from being a police officer, and what he can share with us about that parental shift. So, Chris, are you ready to get into it?
I'm ready.
All right, let's kick this off, Chris. So, first and foremost, I've got to thank you, sir, for your service. 17 years in the force. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's actually flown by. I appreciate the thanks. Yeah, it's been kind of crazy. Quick blink and 17 years have passed. It doesn't feel like it's been that long.
Now, how did you decide to become a police officer in the first place?
Law enforcement was something, it wasn't something like, from the age of 5, I always wanted to be a police officer. But as I got older, law enforcement was something that was always in the back of my mind, something that it was kind of interesting. But it wasn't this, lifelong dream. I actually worked in other jobs and did other things. And I studied architecture in school, and it was interesting to me, but I wasn't great. And, I looked at it and I could start to see, okay, well, what is this going to look like 10, 20, 30 years down the road? And I don't think this is quite for me. And then I was doing some stuff with, electronics company, again, looking ahead, being able to look in the company and see what, that path looked like. And again, also very interesting, but not something I could see myself doing for an entire career. And I just sort of kept coming back to law enforcement. And ultimately, shortly after starting college, I decided, I think this is something that can really sustain my interest. And I have a lot of opportunities to do a lot of different things. So I started to pursue it.
Now, I'm really fascinated with the profession. For those of us on the outside, it seems that there can be, depending on your assignments, an inherent level of risk. And so you're going in there knowing that you're performing a very laudable and important service to the community, but there's also an element of risk there. How did your family feel about you going into the service, into the police force, and how are you able to sort of mitigate that risk now, especially now that you're married and have 2 young kids?
Yeah, so, initially I started when I was 23, obviously wasn't married, no kids at the time. Of course, my mom worried, my dad worried, my parents worried about me, but at the same time, they were very supportive. They understood that's what I wanted to do. So, I give them credit for being able to balance probably their desire to scream, no, don't do that. And being a dad now, I look at it with a totally different perspective. At 23, you're invincible and fearless, right? Aren't we all? So, they were certainly concerned for safety, but they understood that it was what I wanted to do. I met my wife. I had already been a police officer for a number of years. So she came into it not necessarily knowing any different. So I think it was maybe not as big a shift as if say we had been together beforehand and then I started to pursue law enforcement. But I know it's something that's in the back of her mind as well, but it's just like anything. And there are a lot of professions out there, that are dangerous, risky, require a great deal of courage. And, like anything, if you dwell on it and focus on it, that's going to consume you. If you respect it, understand that it's there, but, try to keep it in the background so you can sort of move on and function in life, I think it's a good way to cope with it.
We're going to get a little bit into that, Chris, in just a couple of minutes. We'll try to go back and get into your DNA and figure out how it was that you were able to develop into this individual that was able to take on these calculated risks and try to basically do things that are commendable and laudable and worth doing, but that do have that risk. I would like to talk first, though, about this concept of the parental shift. So, Chris, you are right now about in your 40s, early 40s,
yes.
And you have two beautiful young boys. They are, 2 years old? And
yeah. One's my oldest is he'll be 3 next month, and then my youngest is about 20 months-ish, so kind of in that 1.5 to 2 year age.
Okay, beautiful. So you kind of represent some of the families, a lot of the families out there, where they're having young children, not necessarily in their 20s or in their early 30s. And I'd love to get into that a little bit because for those who maybe had kids early, maybe some of them are actually jealous. Others might be saying, wow, I'm glad I didn't wait that long to have kids. So what's it been like? I imagine that you're getting to hang out now with maybe some younger parents as you meet kids, other toddlers and infants. So what's it been like for you, the pros and the cons of being 40 years old and having a 2-year-old?
Yeah, so I think you've characterized it very well, right? There are pros and there are cons. There's a guy I work with. He's my age, and his youngest is just graduated high school, and he's done. And I'm like, wow, that would really be nice to be through all that, and kid off, one in college and one out of college. But at the same time, I think for me, I really enjoy spending time with my kids. I think I'm I'm more mature than I would have been had I had kids 10, 15, 20 years ago, certainly. I think I have a little bit better or a bigger worldview than I did back then. And I hope that helps, and it gives me a little bit of perspective on sort of the big picture in the grand scheme of things. Another benefit of waiting is 17 years in my job, I have a little bit of seniority. I have a little bit of control over my schedule. So I can, within reason, adjust when I work to kind of fit the family lifestyle and sort of what we've got going on with our schedule, which if I were, a first, second, fifth year officer, may not have as much control, and it would probably put a little bit more stress on the family, just like we all have, right? Scheduling, childcare, everything that goes along with both parents working. The downsides for sure is, I'm if I retire at my retirement age for work, my boys won't even be in like middle school. So I'm going to be the gray haired old man in a cane and a walker, at their graduation at this rate.
Oh boy.
And then again, looking towards having to pay for school and all the things, all the expenses that come with kids. So all in all, I'm happy with it. It's worked out very well for me. I think my wife and I got a chance to, of course, have our time together, single or, without kids. I certainly had many years single. So I don't feel like maybe some folks do or some parents do of a sense of missing out, having missed opportunities. So, all in all, I'm happy with it. It works for me. I'm pleased.
Very interesting. Now, I'm kind of curious to know, and you alluded to this a little bit when you talked about your parents having some initial concerns about you getting into the force. So this was 17 plus years ago when you were younger. But how have your views, Chris, changed about parenting since before you became a parent and now that you're almost 3 years in?
Quite a bit. You know, I think for me, I understand how complex being a parent is and how challenging it can be. I think I had a very naive view of it beforehand. It's easy to look from the outside, like in anything, whether it's parenting, another profession, actors, whatever. Whenever someone kind of looks from the outside, it's easy to oversimplify it and say, well, how hard can it be? And, just do X, Y, and Z. That's period, done, solved, right? Problem solved. That's what we do, is we solve problems. Obviously there's a lot more complexity to it. My eyes have really opened to that, especially now as the boys are getting older. I'm sure there's a lot of your listeners out there with kids, even like you, middle school, high school, out of school, right? They have a little bit better perspective than I do, certainly. But just I'm starting to see now at my oldest hitting 3, starting to go to preschool. There's a lot involved, a lot more than I would have expected. So, and the level of influence and I guess the responsibility for shaping these little lives, not more so than I expected, definitely.
Interesting. Now, before we give you all the credit, Chris, because from what I can tell, you're a pretty phenomenal dad. You have a pretty amazing wife.
I do. She is a superstar. I deserve a very small fraction of the credit.
Now, how did you guys actually meet, though?
So this is just disclosure, forewarning. This is a disgustingly romantic story. So I just want to let everybody exactly. It's really bad. So we met in 2008 in Europe, traveling in Europe. I went with my younger siblings who were turning 21. I was in my early 30s, and we did this 2-week tour of Europe. I kind of went with them. It was fun for us to go, and I was half chaperone, half I had never been to Europe before. My wife happened to be on the same tour. So in Munich, of all places, on a bicycle tour of the city, we stopped, started talking, of course, over a beer in a Hofbrau. And through the course of the trip, we were hanging out more and going sightseeing together. And on the last stop was Paris. And although we had been hanging out and sightseeing with the group, I said, look, I want to take you on a date. So our first date was in Paris. We had dinner out on the sidewalk. We walked to the Eiffel Tower, got the crepes for dessert, watched the light show, went to a bar afterwards. I mean, and I told her the minute the date started, I said, look, it's only downhill from here.
I'm saying
I am never topping this first date in Paris. Like, it's just not going to happen. So please don't let this be the benchmark, because you will be tragically disappointed from here on out. And so we had this great tour, this great trip. We found out we travel well together, which everybody knows that's you got to be able to travel with your spouse. But we lived separately. I live in Northern California. She lived at the time in Southern California. We did long distance for a year, and then she moved up here. She's a school teacher, and the rest is history.
Wow, that is beautiful. I'm going to make sure my wife never hears this episode.
Perfect. Yeah, I understand. I absolutely understand. Yes.
You ruined it for everyone,
and feel free to edit this out if there's a big uprising in your audience. Just you can cut that segment out.
I mean, in fairness, Paris is the most romantic city my wife and I have ever been to. Yes. We actually went there on our baby moon. I didn't know there was such a thing as baby moon. My wife educated me, but when we were expecting our first son, my wife said, hey, listen, after these kids get here, we're not going to be traveling that often, so let's go to Europe. And so we ended up in Paris. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's a great city.
Oh, that's great. And one challenge that a lot of us parents have, Chris, is we put so much energy into our work. Then we put so much energy into our kids. And by the time it comes to our spouse, a lot of times we have nothing left. and I'm putting my hand up, confessing as I share this. How has it been for you, Chris? How have you been able to manage being a sergeant in the police force, being a new father, and still being that Chris that your wife remembers from Parental?
Yeah, I told her to forget that guy. No, you're absolutely right, and I'm raising my hand too. That it certainly is a challenge. We, if anything, is, I won't say suffers necessarily, but in the order of priorities, you're right. Work, obviously, making a living, supporting the family, both myself and my wife, and then of course the kids. You want to spend as much time with them. So certainly, we do put our alone time on the back burner. That's sort of where we can fit it in. It's definitely a challenge. I know we try to make an effort to have some time to ourselves. We've got great family that'll come watch the boys for us, so we can go out and spend just a little bit of alone time. Make it a rule. Listen, we're not talking about the kids. We love them to death. Let's not sit at lunch or dinner and then just talk about the kids. We can do that at home with them around. So it's good. It took a little while to sort of find our groove with that, because the first time we had a quote unquote date lunch, it wasn't really a date night. That's all we did was talk about our old family. This is ridiculous. Like we need to talk about ourselves and our lives outside of the boys. So always a challenge, but I think we're on the same page with we have the same priorities, and that makes a huge difference. And we understand that if the kids get in the way, but if they take priority because of whatever's going on, we understand that. Again, we're for the same goal.
That's great. That's great. Okay, Chris, we are going to shift gears on you right now. And being that you're a man of action, I think you can handle it.
All right.
So what we're going to do here, Chris, we want to know how Clark Kent became Superman. We're about to put you in that red phone booth, Chris.
All right.
We're taking you back.
All right.
And we want to know how young Chris Sansome became the man he is today. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do this. This is going to be lightning fast. Favorite superhero?
Batman.
Ooh, you said that quickly. Yep. I like that. Favorite cartoon show?
As a kid, it evolved. I'd say I kind of started with the Looney Tunes, right? Bugs Bunny, and then Super Friends definitely took over there. And then kind of at the end of my cartoon watching career, if you will, like the He-Man, the G.I. Joe.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. Nice. Taking me back. I got to tell you, though, Chris, another 6 to 12 months, and you're going to go back into the cartoon watching phase again.
Yes. No, I know. Yeah, I know. I know what's coming.
It's coming. Favorite video game growing up?
Had to be the original Super Mario Brothers on the original NES. That was the big thing. Again, I'm a little bit older, so I remember that coming out, and that was the game.
Can't beat that with the bat. Okay, favorite family tradition growing up?
Family tradition. There were a couple I can think of that come to mind. One was around Christmas, related to holidays. So Christmas time, actually take that to Thanksgiving. We would always, as a family, go to, there's a town in Central California called Solvang. It's a little Dutch town, and every year at Christmas they decorate the whole town. I assume they still do. We would go there and we would shop for Christmas ornaments, and this is pre-Thanksgiving, and then give them out to the family at Thanksgiving. So it's kind of a little warm-up, gift giving at Thanksgiving meal. We got it, we gave everybody an ornament. It was sort of their yearly ornament. It was a nice little tradition. Of course, you build your ornaments up and have little keepsakes. And then the other, my dad and I used to go, when I was a kid, every 4th of July. I grew up in Southern California, and there was a place called Mount Rubidoux. It's out, I think, in San Bernardino somewhere. And every year they would have a fireworks show. They would launch fireworks off of the top of Mount Rubidoux, and everyone would go to look. Well, That was cool, but that was really only half the show, because without fail, every year there'd be one dud firework, and it'd set the hill on fire. And so what you were there for was to watch the fireworks and then watch the fire trucks trucking up the fire trail up the hill to go put the fire out. It was this crazy phenomenon that there was a fire every year, and everyone went to see the fireworks and watch the fire.
fire.
Yeah. It was just. I know that's horrible, like watching a car crash, but that was fun.
That's pretty funny, Chris. I wonder if you can recall one of those embarrassing moments, those cringe-worthy moments that maybe still haunts you today. Did you have any of those growing up?
I had a lot of them. Like kids, right? I like to ride skateboards, like to ride bikes, but I was never like a really good skateboarder, or I was never like a really good BMX bike rider. So lots of crashes. I think that was the biggest thing. There's always lots of crashes, whether it's skateboard, bike, falling down, and it was always in front of as many people as possible. Everybody. That was kind of a series of those in moments.
And where did your identity sort of come from as a kid? Who were you? Who was Chris Sansome as a kid? What motivated you? How did you see yourself in relation to the world around you?
Motivation was usually like, candy or video games or riding bikes, I think. All things fun was the motivator. I never really identified necessarily with a group or a clique necessarily, and looking back, maybe I'm remembering it a little more magnified than it was, but it seemed like, in those preteen, middle school, early high school years, really sort of has the groups and the labels, if you will. And I never really sort of fell into one of those. I associated with a lot of folks and had a lot of friends, sort of across the board, but never was really this sort of a dedicated, fill in the blank group or clique, I think. And I think I struggled with that at first because there's always, you want to belong. You want to feel like you belong to something. But towards the end of high school, I really kind of fell into a bigger comfort level with that and just enjoyed having friends, an eclectic group of friends. I did, sort of gel with a group of guys and girls that, were my core friends, sort of moving through the latter stages of high school and out of it. So that was kind of a big transition for me, is really kind of feeling like I don't fit in, or I need to fit in somewhere, and then sort of realizing that, well, it's okay. I'm good with who I am. So.
I'm fascinated about that because one of the benefits of fitting into a group is that if you choose a good group, there's positive peer pressure. If you choose a not so good group, there's negative peer pressure.
Sure.
But regardless of what side of the coin the group falls on, you always have an insulation or protection from kids that are outside the group. So whether you're concerned about bullying or anything else, if you have a group to identify with, you kind of have that extra comfort level, that extra confidence that, hey, I don't care if nobody else likes me, I have my crew.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know, Chris, without you having that crew, at least early on in middle and high school, what kind of experience that created for you? Did you find yourself being lonely? Did you have to deal with bullying or people trying to push you into one group or another? What impact did that have on you?
I think again, looking back now, I can sort of see the benefits of it, because it really, in trying to find where I fit in, I actually got a little taste of a lot of different things, and a lot of different people. So, now it's easy to say, hey, it was great because, I made a variety of different friends and I sort of exposed myself to, different interests, that, different groups or folks had. But at the time, it made me feel kind of really insecure about things because I just didn't feel like I don't have a place. I don't know where I really fit here in the world. But that exploration and trying to find it again later on down the road, I think was a benefit. But at the time, of course you don't see that. You just feel this sort of uncomfortable insecurity, like I don't know where my place is.
Right. Yeah, that's excellent. That's pretty insightful. So we're going to wrap up here in a couple of minutes because I know that you have to get off to protect and serve. But I actually want to ask a question related to that that concept of protecting and serving as pertains to our kids. So we all kind of want to raise kids that have good values and good ethics, and not only look out for themselves, but also look out for those around them. And the work that you do epitomizes that. You're going out there and putting yourself on the line every day to protect the community. I wonder, Chris, if you can kind of maybe give us some thoughts as to how we can try to nurture that sense of community service in our kids. A lot of us still have young kids, and there's still all of us, well, as we grow up, we start up in a me phase. We have to be taught to look out for others and to put others' needs before ours. So what are your thoughts as a father, as I know your kids are young, but as a dad blogger, as someone who's seen all kinds of things in the community, what do we need to be doing as parents to nurture that sense of civil service and community service in our kids?
You know, I think if I had to pick one thing that would help, I think it would just be instilling in the kids a sense of compassion, because I think that's what it all sort of relates to in a bigger picture, is just being compassionate for others and understanding their challenges and their difficulties. And when you have that compassion, I think the natural desire or instinct or the next step is to help, right? Is to help people out. When you understand, you can identify whether somebody's having difficulty, a simple difficulty of, solving a problem, or some emotional difficulty, or, has a challenging set of circumstances that they're in. When you understand that, I think it makes it easier to help and easier to identify who needs help. And to me, that they just sort of go hand in hand.
Very, very insightful. I love that. We're going to close on that note. But before we leave you, Chris, we got to put you through one more challenge.
All right.
This is the final gauntlet. And this is a time travel or time capsule challenge, okay? So, Chris, your kids are about 1.5 and almost 3 right now.
Yeah.
Let's project, Chris, about 30 years into the future. So your kids are in their 30s. Let's pretend that they're married. Maybe they even have their own little mini Chris's running around. What would you, Chris, like to say to your 2 boys about this moment in time, 2015, why you made the decisions you made, why you worked so hard, why you did the things you did as a police officer, as a dad, as a husband? Let's talk to them right now in the future. What would you want to say to them?
Well, I'd want them to know that, they are right now and 30 years from now, very, very important people to me, important in my life. I love them tremendously, and that, really once they came along, things did shift for me as far as priorities and focus, and they definitely became the focus for me. I do work a lot. I work different shifts. I'm not always home for dinner. I'm not always home on the weekends, depending upon when I have to work. And whenever I'm at work, I want to be home with them. So hopefully 30 years from now, they've heard this from me, and this is a bigger challenge now that you've given me, that now I have to I'm on the hook to make sure I tell them this, so they don't hear it from 30 years from now and say, what the heck, you never told us. So there's a challenge within the challenge. But yeah, just that, everything that I've done, that my wife has done, has been for them.
I love that from the heart. We've been listening to Sergeant Chris Sansome of the police force. He's been in the force 17 years. Thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you.
He's got a super wife, father of 2 boys, and he blogs at theparentalshift.com. You can also find Chris's musings on fatherhood, by the way, in the book Dads Behaving Dadly, version 2. That's Dads Behaving Dadly, D-A-D-L-Y. Chris, this has been a great pleasure. Thank you so much. I hope we can do this again soon.
Absolutely. I had a great time. Thank you so much.
All right, folks. On behalf of Mr. Chris Sansome and myself, this is Balaji O, the Bravepreneur Parents Academy. Until next time, up, and away!
Thanks for supporting my dad's show. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to iTunes. He said hot chocolate is for closers. If you don't subscribe, I don't get hot chocolate. I love hot chocolate.
Fear not. Although this chapter of Bravepreneur Parents Academy has come to its conclusion, we have many more adventures for you and your brave little heroes. Head over to bravequest.me for access to the Brave Quest Journal, an interactive activity playbook that rewards your little ones with points for accomplishing tasks that build character and unleash your child's inner superhero all before bedtime. We look forward to having you join us for more adventures next time on Bravepreneur Parents Academy.